Hey everybody, it is Trags Mike Petralia back with the latest installment of the Jungle Roar podcast, powered by our good friends at Prize Picks and the Game Time app. And of course, as always, let us not forget CLNS Media. My pleasure to bring back somebody I never forget, at least to think about. And whenever he is on my case about something I've done on the Bengals beat, he is the first to point it out. That would be James Rapien of BengalsTalk.com. He does a great job with that. And Enter the Jungle, that podcast you can see everywhere you download podcasts and videos. How you doing, James?
I'm good, Traggy. How are you?
Not bad at all. Getting ready to watch Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans, and I thought
Are you
it would
going?
be. I am not going to Super Bowl 59. I am not. I am going to probably be with the lovely Deborah Ann. Actually, getting back, if you must know, from a concert watching Billy Joel night before. So, but I will be back in front of my television with Deborah Ann, and we might have others over watching the Super Bowl. So that's what my plans are. How about you?
No idea. I take it one day at a time. I'm very much one day at a time. I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. I know I'm invited to multiple things.
Right.
I haven't even looked to see what, where, when, what time they start or anything like that. So I have no idea.
You might even be invited to one more if you can make your busy schedule work, but I don't know yet. Don't know. Anyway, Super Bowl 59 is in New Orleans, and I'm going to start out with this question, and I want to get your honest reaction. They're both great teams, great franchises. The teams are meeting in the Super Bowl for the second time in 3 years. The Eagles have won one Super Bowl in the past 6 seasons, while the Kansas City Chiefs are going for their fourth Super Bowl championship. Yeah, that would be right, correct? Yes, their fourth Super Bowl championship in 6 seasons. If James Rapien were the magical wizard of the NFL and had the ability to choose for the Bengals a future, who would you model your NFL franchise after, the Kansas City Chiefs or the Philadelphia Eagles?
It's funny you bring this up because there are a lot of Bengals fans that will say, oh, well, look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs do it right. Oh, the Chiefs. No, they're actually the worst roster. And they very well could win the Super Bowl. They could win the Super Bowl like they did last year when they had the worst roster of the two teams. The 49ers had a better roster. Spoiler alert, last year. They were the better overall team. The Lions, for example, have maybe the second best roster in football. The Philadelphia Eagles have the best roster in football.
No question. And I agree with this.
I remember prepping for week 8 and starting to look at the Eagles and do research. Yep. And there were people questioning the Eagles. And obviously they came into Paycor and kicked the crap out of the Bengals 37-17. But I started to prep and I was like doing a deep dive on the Eagles and just looking at their positions. And it's like, oh, well, they have the weapons box checked. Their quarterback, no, he's not Joe Burrow, but he's pretty darn good. It's not like they have Jared Goff at quarterback. Their defensive line is just layer upon layer upon layer, much like the Steelers. And, they addressed their secondary with my favorite corner in the draft, Quinyon Mitchell, who I thought was very much in play for the Bengals in the first round. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they got Amarius Mims. And then a guy in Cooper DeJean. Without a doubt, it's the Philadelphia Eagles for a few reasons. One, it's something Joe Burrow said a little over a month ago now, around a month ago. Pay your guys early. They pay them early, man. Devonta Smith early. A.J. Brown, we'll trade for you, pay you, and then we're going to pay you again to keep you happy. Jalen Hurts, get that deal done early. When you do that, it allows you to go get Saquon. It allows you to pay your offensive linemen or defensive front and guys that have been staples. So to me, the Chiefs, you can't really copy what they have. They have the best quarterback in football, an elite defense for sure, but the best defensive coordinator in football, the best head coach in football. It's really hard to compete there. But the Eagles have the best roster in football. And so of the two, I would certainly pick the Eagles for sure.
Okay. And James, I'm going to support what you said because I happen to 100% agree because of one man, Howie Roseman. What Howie has been able to do, and to your point, he's been able to sign his star players. He's been able to draft and develop. And the Eagles have been able to do something that the Bengals have not been able to do. And I went over this last week on the Jungle Roar pod with Skinny, Richard Skinner of Local 12. And we looked at their defense in particular. Jalen Carter, a first-round pick in 2023.
Yep.
Nolan Smith Jr., a first-round pick in 2023.
Yep.
Jordan Davis, a first-round pick in 2022. You see where I'm going with all of this? Reed Blankenship, he was a street free agent in 2022. You already mentioned Quinyon Mitchell, a first rounder in 2024 that the Bengals had an opportunity to get, but I'm not going to criticize what they have in Amarius Mims at right tackle. I said the same thing last week. They have Dejon Cooper, a second round pick last year. The Eagles have been able to draft and develop, and all of those players I just listed are contributors on this NFC Championship team. That's what the Bengals need to do. That's where, I would say a fair amount, if not a majority of the criticism lies in how the Bengals address their roster the last 3 seasons.
And what's wild is it's not like the Bengals ignored their defense. Like when you're reading off those guys, well, they had a shot at Nolan Smith. They went with Myles Murphy. Yeah, they've drafted multiple corners in the second round. They took a first-round safety, and it's the drafting and then the developing. I don't think they're wrong with all of those guys, but you got to be able to develop them, and that's what the Eagles have been able to do. And the Eagles have also not let their studs leave, so there's a marriage there, and it is something that Bengals fans need to hear. You don't get better by letting T. Higgins walk. You don't. You could say, oh, well, yeah, well, they got to fix the defense. Well, you know how you fix the defense, Trags? By drafting well. Correct. By developing your guys. By, signing some guys that are going to help, and they can do that without breaking the bank. They haven't really broke the bank on any defensive player that would keep them from signing T. Higgins. And it's about finding the right fit and the right guys and the right veterans at the right time. That's what Trey Hendrickson was, DJ Reader, Mike Hilton, Chidobe Awuzie. I mean, you could go on and on about all of their free agent hits. And so that's where I'm at. It's so funny to see how the Eagles have done it. And they've done it despite I don't think they have the best coaching. I don't think they have a head coach that is going to wow you. I would have probably moved on from him last year. Now they give him better offensive coordinators and better coordinators in general, by the way.
Right.
And things change, but I think they're at a coaching disadvantage going into this weekend and at the head coaching spot for sure. So that's what I would emulate. I don't think you can wake up one day and just have the best head coach in the league. Wake up one day and you do have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but Patrick Mahomes has got the bling. Joe doesn't. So I can't rank Joe ahead of Pat. I don't think as good as Al Golden may be. I don't think he's going to be Steve Spagnuolo. But what you can do is you can be aggressive and find your guys. And the last thing I will say, Howie Roseman last year, you mentioned it, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Those are probably the 2 top cornerbacks on their board last year, and they get both of them. They needed secondary help, and they got it right there. Boom. You know why? Because they traded up. And the Bengals had 10 picks in their draft last year, 10. And they knew they would be relying on their draft class. They knew it. They knew that this was a year they were going to have to rely on their draft picks. And you know what they did? They got Amarius Mims, who was really high on their board, loved the pick. And then they sat on their hands, and they didn't move up. Even though you and I both know there are guys on day 2 at wide receiver, at multiple positions, but that they would have liked, that they had ranked pretty high on their board, and they could have aggressively went up and got them. And then we might be having a different conversation about T or about the construction of the roster, about their talent, about everything.
Here's my bigger problem with the Bengals is the sense of uncertainty and the unknown about what direction the Bengals are headed going forward. And I think that, extends into the fan base as well, James, that I don't think people know whether or not they want T. Higgins back. Like they really want T. Higgins back. Like there is going to be a concerted effort to do whatever it takes after getting Jamar Chase done. And I told this to Skinny last week, tell it again to you here today. I think they have to get Jamar Chase done. I think it gets done. I'm just going to consider that a fait accompli. Maybe that's dangerous on my part, given the two sides. What happened last year. But I think that gets done. It's a matter of, do the Bengals make that extra concerted effort to get T. Higgins done, to make a reasonable working offer that can be negotiated? And can they do the same with Trey Hendrickson on the defensive side of the ball? I have no idea and no feel for what their direction is in the regard to those two players.
They better. That's it. They better. Because good luck selling Joe Burrow on the idea that, yeah, we're going to be so much better on defense without Trey Hendrickson. Okay, good luck. It's one of those things, right? And you can look at Trey's production, and it's there, and I think you put more pieces around him, and guess what? I think it would be even better and be even more efficient. And that doesn't mean he's a perfect player. He is not Myles Garrett. He is not Micah Parsons. He is not those guys. He's a tier below those guys. That doesn't mean he's not awesome and deserves to be paid and get a raise. And I think that's where the Bengals are at. Now, the feeling on T, I want to say probably 3 months ago, Trags, I'm not sure they plan on keeping T. But I don't know how you can't if you're trying to win in the foreseeable future. Because you don't have to win, and this is where the Chiefs come in to play. The Chiefs aren't a perfect roster. What are their strengths? They are really, really good on one side of the ball. Really, really good. And then they get by on offense, and everyone crowns them because they continue to win, so it's probably true. But ever since they traded Tyreek, and especially now that Travis Kelce isn't the Travis Kelce we remember, they are searching at receiver. I mean, they are searching, but they patch it together and make it work. That doesn't mean every team should say, screw receiver, let's focus on defense. It can be done the other way. It can be done the other way where, the Bengals don't have to have a perfect defense. It can be good enough. And then you just overwhelm teams with quality guard play and some elite weapons on the outside with Joe Burrow throwing them the ball.
He is James Rapien, does a fabulous job covering all things NFL and the Bengals, of course, for BengalsTalk.com and SI.com. I want to tell you about Game Time, the best way to get your tickets. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. Now that makes getting tickets for events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluffs to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. What do I love about Game Time? I love curated deals that make it easier to find the best price on great seats. This feature I really enjoy and appreciate. They have seat views before you buy because you want to know what the field or the floor is going to look like before you make that investment to buy the ticket. And they have the lowest price guarantee. Game Time ticket coverage is the following. Your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time and your purchase covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account today, and use that code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account today and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back with James Rapien of BengalsTalk.com and SI.com. What did you think of Myles Garrett here on Monday requesting a trade from the Cleveland Browns? Expected?
Expected. Understand it. It felt kind of inevitable. And I don't blame Myles. I think Myles has been a good soldier through multiple coaches, multiple quarterbacks, multiple trades, multiple big splash win now moves, and it hasn't worked. And I think when he's dealing with a bit of a foot issue, still playing elite, obviously had 14 sacks this year. But when you're playing at that level and you keep looking around and no one else can get you to the level that you want, which is right now. I mean, think about how long the Bengals, it's been, it feels like forever since we've been at Paycor Stadium for a in-season, it's only been a month, but an in-season press conference. Myles Garrett has only felt the playoffs twice.
Yep.
And in neither time did you feel like they were going to be legitimate Super Bowl contenders and get that far. And so that's why I don't blame him. I think the Bengals would be a huge winner if he gets the heck out of the division. They don't want to deal with Myles Garrett. He's been a thorn in their side for quite some time. He entered this year. They stunk this year, the Browns did. But he entered this year with an 8-2 record against the Bengals. He was the thorn in Joe Burrow's side for many, many matchups. So if you're the Bengals, the thing you want is him to get the heck away from the AFC North and hopefully the heck away from the AFC if you're anyone in that building.
There's no chance he winds up with the Bengals. There would be no possibility, A, that the Bengals would want to part with what it would take to acquire him, and B, that the Browns would trade him in the division, right? I mean, let's just...
Well, what would you give? What would you give? Let's say the Browns call you. This is
Okay.
a Luka Doncic call, right?
Yep.
And Andrew Berry calls and says, all right, well, we're willing to send you Myles Garrett. Give us your best offer. What would it be?
A second and a third this year, and no, a second this year and a second and third next year to get that done. I would do that.
Wow.
Because what would you give?
I would give, I'm thinking here, I would offer pick 17 and a conditional second that can become a first next year. And one of the conditions, it's based on playing time and a few other things. And the other condition would be winning the Super Bowl. So it's likely a first and a second. I would do that. Myles Garrett is, and you got to pay him. I get it. I would still give up a first and a second for him.
I hesitate, and I know what the Bengals are like, so maybe I'm thinking too much like they would be thinking.
Oh, sure. They wouldn't even, they're not even having to talk. Just so
right.
You know.
Yeah, no, I understand that. That's why I didn't even, when I saw the story, I'm like, well, there's kind of a need there if you're the Bengals, and can you imagine Trey Hendrickson on one side and Myles Garrett on the other? I mean, there are teams that would say, okay, let's try to get that done no matter what it takes. But the Bengals, yeah, go ahead.
Would you do Myles Murphy in 17?
In a heartbeat. Myles Murphy in the 17th, and that's it? Yeah.
Well, you just
Wouldn't
said
you?
a 2 and a 3.
Well,
I would do more than you is all I'm saying. I mean, he's Myles Garrett.
Well, I'm talking about three picks that would have definite high value, 3 picks that would be in the first 2 days of the next 2 drafts. But maybe, it probably would take more than that, but that would be a starting point for me. And then I'd be willing to go up to a first this year. And I would be willing to go up to a first next year. And that's it. And if that were 2 ones, one this year, one next year, if that got it done and you could put Myles Garrett on the opposite side of Trey Hendrickson, yeah, I'd do that.
Would you trade T? Would you tag T and trade him and pick 17 for Myles if you could? Obviously, the Browns would pay T in this scenario. You wouldn't have to pay T. You could pay Trey and pay Myles.
I'd say no, because you're taking away a key piece from Joe Burrow. Mm-hmm. If it weren't Joe Burrow, I'd say, yeah, I would do that. I definitely do that, but it's Joe, and I think T and Jamar together mean a lot to Burrow.
The reason why that's important is because you just said, I'd say no because it takes away from. There are so many people that say don't pay T so you can use that money elsewhere. I just said, can you turn T into Myles Garrett, who is by far better than anything the Bengals could sign this offseason? I'm just giving, not for you, but for the example that everyone says. It's like, oh, well, yeah, Myles Garrett doesn't grow on trees. And even then you're hesitating. That's my point. T has value. That's all.
He does. He absolutely does. And I just think T. Higgins it's one of those pieces for Burrow that I think if you bring him back, here's the reason I don't trade T. Okay. He's going to be 26 next season, right? Or 27.
Yeah, he's 26. He just turned 26, like 15 days ago. Happy birthday.
Okay. There you go. Happy birthday, T. He is going to be 26. You're going to have a 25-year-old Jamar Chase. That doesn't grow on trees. You're talking about two elite level receivers in the young part of their prime of their career. That's why I wouldn't do it.
Sure. I agree. You're talking to the guy who would have paid Jamar last year, paid T a couple years ago. You know,
yes.
I mean,
yeah, I'm fully aware. But you know, in the world we live in, and the one the Bengals live in, I don't think that happens. I just don't. But I think it's fun to talk about, certainly, James, but I just realistically, I don't see a world where that gets done. And
Myles Garrett to the Cardinals. That's a perfect one. The Arizona Cardinals. Enjoy. That'd be great.
Well, I mean, he's closer to the playoffs out in Arizona, I think, James. I don't know if you feel that way, but he's much closer out there than he would be in Cleveland. No?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of teams, I think. And honestly, most of the league should be interested. Most of the league. AFC, NFC. Like, if you're the Bengals, you probably call. Like, I would call knowing that it's can't hurt to call. And if anything, this Dallas Mavericks, Los Angeles Lakers trade tells you that. It cannot hurt to call, Trags. It can never hurt.
I'm going to get to that in just a moment and bring up something that Adam Schefter tweeted over the weekend after, you know where I'm going with this, after the Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis deal got done late Saturday night into Sunday morning. Well, I'm talking with James Rapien. He does a great job covering the NFL for BengalsTalk.com and SI.com. I want to tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the very best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. You heard that right, 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Well, the big game is almost here, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the big game. Prize Picks is also giving away a free pick for the big game where one of the starting quarterbacks will only need to throw 1 yard to win. If you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you can win real cash. In terms of the big game this Sunday, Patrick Mahomes needs only one passing yard for you to win one square. Will Saquon Barkley rush for more than 112.5 yards? Will Jalen Hurts, Eagles quarterback, pass for more than 215.5 yards? Will Travis Kelce have more than 62.5 receiving yards? Will Xavier Worthy have more than 56.5 receiving yards? Be sure to check Prize Picks for up-to-date player projections. Download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use that code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Back with James Rapien here on the Jungle Roar podcast. All right, Adam Schefter, in the moments after the Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis mega trade was made in the NBA on Saturday night, tweeted that the comp for him, I can't believe he tweeted this, the comp for him would be Lamar Jackson plus something to the Bengals for Joe Burrow plus something. What was your reaction, James, when you read that?
It just doesn't make any sense from an age standpoint, an Anthony Davis standpoint. Now, Lamar and Joe can both be the Luka side for sure, but they can't. Neither one of them is the Anthony Davis side.
Right.
And Anthony Davis is awesome. He's going to be a pro basketball Hall of Famer, which is easier than most Hall of Fames to get into, but he's without a doubt a Hall of Famer. and NBA champion, all of those things. It's not like he's chopped liver, but Luka is a 25, soon to be 26-year-old in his prime. And those guys don't get traded. Just like a 26-year-old wide receiver, unless you're the Tennessee Titans, that is in his prime, that is 1,000 yards waiting to happen, like A.J. Brown
right.
in T. Higgins signs with his original team. It's very unprecedented. And so for that to happen, it isn't that. What it would be like is, because apparently the Mavs wanted to balk at this, and I've thrown out some bad comps too, not as bad as the Schefter one, but now that I've taken a little time, it would be like the Bengals trading Joe Burrow last offseason before 2023. So 2 off seasons ago now. So after they go to the AFC Championship game, back-to-back years, come up short in the Super Bowl. That's basically what Luka had done in 2 out of the last 3 years with the Dallas Mavericks coming up short in the finals. Trading Burrow because they didn't want to pay him that huge extension for a cost-controlled veteran that had won before, like Matt Stafford. And it's Matt Stafford's still really good. You would never trade Joe Burrow for Matt Stafford. And they did that in a first-round pick in the NBA that they threw in is like a 5th-round pick, 4th-round pick in the NFL. It's just a shot in the dark. So it's rough. It's a rough one for sure.
Yeah, I just, when I saw it, I'm like, well, I don't want to get into the Lamar Jackson versus Joe Burrow, but I think they're very different players and what they bring to you. But your point is both of those players could be the Luka part of the deal. I do get that. You were going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, the league did kind of show its hand with Lamar's value a few years ago. Now, since then, he's been really good and he stayed healthy and all of those things. But there's never been a point in Joe's career where he just didn't have value, where teams just wouldn't be interested. I promise you that's not the case. And so I do think that that's there, but both guys are awesome. They are. And Anthony Davis is really, really good still, but he's just not, there's no comp. He's the odd man out. Like if Luka, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson are in a room with Anthony Davis isn't at the level those other 3 guys are at their respective sports, at their respective years.
What did you think of the Pro Bowl this year? Jamar Chase, by the way, for those who may not, and I know there are many, many of you out there who eschew the Pro Bowl on the Sunday before the Super Bowl to do other things because it's not really football. I hate saying that, but you might have missed what Jamar Chase did. He had, I believe, 9 catches, over 105 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He was the best Bengal. Joe Burrow was respectable. I think he was 6 of 11 in that game. I'll have to look up the box score, but I don't know. I just
don't look up the box score. Don't do that. I had it on, but yeah, I mean it's flag football, and it's like half-speed flag football. That's the other element here, because they don't want to risk, and I get that,
of course.
But like Joe Burrow at half-speed flag football is different than Joe Burrow, right? I will say this: I do think Lamar Jackson would be insane in flag football. Like you're looking for a win in February. Well, flag football, Lamar, it's definitely winning in February.
So, I mean, if you're flag now, correct me if I'm wrong, James, but flag football could be in 2028 an Olympic sport, correct?
Yeah, and I don't know if the rules are Olympic style. That's what's tough is there's so many different like quarterbacks weren't able to run at all really in the Pro Bowl because of the rules. So I don't know there. I don't want to get too into the weeds with it. What I will say is Jamar Chase certainly in play for 2028 and getting a gold. I think Joe Burrow would certainly be open to that as well. And when you're playing for a gold, I do think it's different. In just watching these guys, it would be different in the strategy there. So if there's tryouts, I'm sure there would be some kind of flag football camp. That'd be a fun one. I would try out too, by the way. Just so you know.
What are you most interested in watching in Super Bowl 59? What do you think will be one of or 2 or 3 of the most interesting storylines in the game itself?
Oh man. Can can this Eagles team with the better roster, but not as good of coaching? And by the way, I'm not trying to rip Vic Fangio, who's an awesome defensive coordinator, right?
Sure.
I'm not trying to rip future Saints head coach that has been awesome for them on the offensive side. At the same time, like, it just feels like the Chiefs have been flawed all year, and they've just found a way, and that's really hard to overcome. It just is. Everyone's talking about the officials and all those things. It's really hard to beat the Chiefs because you might outplay them, but you have to outplay them and then beat them on the 2 to 3 to 4 snaps that really decide the game. And if you mess up on one of those 2 through 4 snaps, they win. So it's just really tough. The infrastructure is rock solid, and so that's what I'm looking for. I think the Eagles certainly can do it. I think there are a lot of teams that can do it. If the Chiefs win, they will be the best team, but they have plenty of flaws, plenty of things you can exploit. And so are the Eagles the team that can slay the dragon and prevent the three-peat from happening? I think that's it. I mean, you can go into all the minutia, but that's the big thing, the high-level thing that I'll be paying attention to.
Okay, the high-level thing I'm paying attention to, because he's my favorite defensive coordinator in football, is Steve Spagnuolo. I think it's going to come down to him finding a way consistently to control, manage Saquon Barkley. The Bengals, if you go back and look at that Week 8 game, I thought the Bengals did a pretty good job for about 2.5 quarters until late third quarter of managing Saquon Barkley in a way that I think the Chiefs are going to have to do. You want to make Jalen Hurts in this game beat you by throwing the ball. And yes, he has Devontae Smith, and yes, he has A.J. Brown. But you want to make Jalen Hurts beat you and not Saquon. And you've got to win the battle in the trenches.
Well, that's if Jalen Hurts has to beat you, then that's the huge question mark, right? And Kellen Moore is the name I forgot. We'll see. He's going to be the Saints head coach, but can he go toe to toe there with Andy Reid and make sure, because you're going in with the inferior quarterback. The Bengals don't feel that way when it's Burrow versus Mahomes. Let's deep down know, like, that's Jalen Hurts is not at the level that Patrick Mahomes is. So if you can get Saquon going, take a little pressure off of Hurts, then he has the weapons. He can get the weapons going. The tight ends, got the wide receivers on the outside. So huge factor. I agree with you. And how Spagnuolo takes away Saquon, probably outside of turnovers, defines the game.
Give me a score.
I haven't even thought of it. I mean, I'm
okay.
Not picking.
Well, I don't want you to scoop yourself. And I
haven't even thought about it. It's not that. I don't even have a score scheduled. I would probably lean Chiefs by 3, because I picked against the Chiefs last year because I thought the 49ers had a better roster, and it blew up in my face at the end. I'm not doing that again. And so I'll take the Chiefs by 3.
I'm going with the Eagles by 3, and I'm going to kind of go back to the 07 Patriots. The 07 Patriots were on the brink of accomplishing history. The Chiefs are on the brink of accomplishing history, obviously going for a three-peat. No team, James, and I find this hard to believe, no 2-time back-to-back Super Bowl winner has ever even made it back to the Super Bowl. The closest were the 49ers in 1990 when they were beaten by the Giants at Candlestick Park. But I think that in this particular case, the Eagles are going to be able to do what they need to do to slay the dragon finally, and I think they're going to be able to beat the Chiefs.
They have more talent. They have more talent. They have the better roster, so I'm not going to argue with you.
The Chiefs beat the Eagles a couple of years ago to start this run by 3 points. I think the Eagles turn the table and win it on a last-second field goal.
Yeah. Would not shock me one bit if that happens. I think a lot of people watching and listening are hoping that happens, Trags.
What are you and Jay Morrison, what do you guys have going right now on all Bengals, BengalsTalk.com, excuse me?
Jay just started a free agency series. I know he wrote about Trey Smith today. He's going to be writing about a ton of the free agent targets, who fits, who doesn't, for the Bengals. So we'll have that. Obviously, the latest on any news, rumblings, and plenty coming your way. I mean, the combine's just a few weeks away. So, I mean, we're going to be busy for sure.
All right, he is James Rapien, does a fabulous job covering all things Bengal for Bengals for Bengals.talk.com. There we go. Woo! And of course, Enter the Jungle. Where can people watch Enter the Jungle, James?
Cincinnati Bengals Talk on YouTube, and make sure you check out the Locked On Bengals podcast as well.
All right, he's James Rapien. My name is Mike Petralia. Trags, thanks for downloading this episode of the Jungle Roar podcast, powered by our good friends at Prize Picks and the Game Time app and the CLNS media. And you know the tagline, James. Keep that jungle roaring.